Well, I mean, you're a bright guy, obviously, because you realized you needed a coach. But there's so many people who try and wing their first Ironman, and only they learn the hard way, and then decide they need a coach
After their first effort.
Yes. And that's what happened now at Mossel Bay. There were so many non-finishers, and I think, you know, having a coach and helping you with the amount of training you need to do, it's a very complex sport.
Never in my life did I ever think I was going to become an endurance athlete. And so my journey started to become an Ironman. And through my journey, I've learned so many lessons that have helped me inside a business. One of those lessons that I've learned was about getting a coach. And I thought, hang on, Craig, you have a YouTube channel called Coffee with Craig. So if you haven't met me yet, my name is Craig and welcome to Coffee with Craig. Today, I'm going to share with you my Ironman coach, who's taught me so much in my journey of what it takes to become successful, what it takes to finish an Ironman, and I wanted to bring her on to share with you the fact that she had 1 or 3 half Ironman distances this year, and what she can teach you about getting involved with your first Ironman. So if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to learn about success, to learn about mindset, to learn about business, to learn about anything that can potentially help you on your journey, whatever your journey is. If you haven't yet, smash that like button and enjoy this episode with Viv Williams. Okay, Viv, how did you get involved with triathlons?
Now, that's also a long story. I have a twin sister, and she and I were very involved in all sorts of sports when we were at school, and it was kind of where we ended up because we tried every sport, and although we'd never run at school, we were swimmers, or we'd never cycled either, but we were swimmers, and gymnastics was our main sport at school. And my twin sister actually introduced me to triathlon when it was really very, very small in South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were at school, when I was here at Rondebosch,
Yeah.
I always thought the people that did triathlons were weird.
Yeah.
Because you were meant to play cricket or rugby or something with a ball.
Yeah. South Africa was late to the party when it came to triathlon.
Because it seemed like triathlon is more something that you develop as you get older and you get into more endurance sports. But you started off doing shorter triathlons.
Well, I eventually came from a running background, and having been a school swimmer, got into triathlon. Ironman was never a thing when I started triathlon. It was more about the sprint distance and Olympic distance, yes.
Okay. What is the first triathlon you ever did?
I think it was at Mykonos, where we used to have all our championship races.
Where they still have races now?
Yeah, and I mean, we used to wear 2 pieces and have strange looking bikes and nothing like the equipment that they use today. Yeah, so I think I started with the Olympic distance and then went back to sprint distance. And I was only got involved after having had children and when my twin sister was actually giving up triathlon, and she was very good, and she represented South Africa in Dallas and all over the show many, many years ago, before I even started.
So she got you involved?
Yes.
And what made you want to start? How did she convince you?
Well, I can tell you why, because I was actually the swimmer at school. She used to disappear when we were training for swimming. She didn't like cold water, so she went to the diving pool, which is in the same facility area, and she went and dived. And so if she could do triathlon, and me being the swimmer, surely I could also do triathlon. So I didn't have a bike at the time, and she gave me one of her sponsored bikes, which was a pink bike. And and that's how I started.
And that's how it started.
Yeah.
Okay, and how did it evolve over time?
Well, I think I became hooked after doing quite well in my first event.
In the first one?
Yes.
Okay.
So I started way back in '93. Yeah, I was 31 when I started, so I always say to the youngsters, who start so early, that you've got years and years of the sport, don't rush it. And then in '93, I made the South African age group team, together with Renee, and we went across to Manchester and we raced world champs in my...
And what distance was that?
That was Olympic distance.
Olympic distance, yeah. Okay. So was that the first time you ever represented South Africa?
Yes. I'd started kind of this October before, and it was about March, April that we made the team. But we went across to Manchester and Renee won our age group.
Sure.
And I came 10th in the age group. And then I just kind of thought maybe I can do this too, you know.
Oh,
and that was actually her last international race and my first international race.
Okay,
so we swapped roles. By 95, I was on the elite team and racing overseas at World Champs. I remember those events very clearly. They were not easy. I started to not enjoy triathlon very much when I traveled and raced overseas because we as South Africans were so far behind. We really were. We really struggled, although Triathlon South Africa at the time selected 2 females and 2 males to travel and try and get world triathlon points to get start slots at the races and to get start slot at the Olympics.
And then, I mean, obviously in South Africa, Ironman is a big brand and people get into triathlon because they want to do Ironman more than anything else. When did you do your first Ironman event?
Oh, late. And I wish I'd actually found half Ironman earlier. I spent a lot of time on a team where we traveled throughout South Africa. There used to be a series of sprint distance races, so I spent a lot of time actually as a veteran athlete, so after I turned 40, doing a lot of sprint races, and I think that helped me with speed. And I found Ironman quite late, to be honest, because I was concentrating on the sprint and the Olympic distance at the time, and I don't think it's a bad grounding to come from before dashing into.
It seems like a lot of the guys that have done well in Ironman now come from the shorter distances.
Yes.
Internationally,
yes.
Internationally. They were at the Olympics doing sprint distance or Olympic distance, and they slowly went to longer and longer races the whole time.
Correct.
And it also is interesting for me is that most of the good triathletes come from a swimming background, like Lucy Charles. And for me, it's almost they're getting out of the water in those sprints or Olympic distances so that the front of the peloton, and they're then there with better cyclists, and then they improve over time and they become better runners.
And those athletes are actually training so many hours weekly that they don't lack on endurance at all. So they're really transferring to longer distance so easily and really doing well. And because of their swim in particular,
Okay, well let's go and have a walk around the track where we go running and then chat a little bit more about coaching.
So when I was trying to be an elite, and I won't say we were professional because we never earned a living, so as South Africa is trying to be elite on the professional circuit, that's more what we were doing. Traveling in a bus, a lot of the athletes used to travel together from race to race or from training, and just discussing with one American girl, and I'll never forget when I wanted to know from her how much swimming we should be doing because we had no guidelines we had no coaches and we had no guidelines from South Africa. And so I kind of bravely said, well, we swim 3 times a week and we swim about 12 Ks, and she laughed. She comes from a swimming background, they were doing 25 Ks a week. And so we were just floundering with what we were really trying to do internationally as an elite.
Sure. So you had no guidance, no management, no coaches, nothing of the sorts?
No coaches, and no one who really in South Africa could help us.
And do you think that's what aided in the fact that you weren't enjoying it?
Yeah, it was really, really hard. Because we were so far behind
the rest of the world.
Yeah, with the preparation and tactics, and we knew nothing. We really knew nothing. We were there just because we were the best that South Africa had. And we should not have been there. Sure. The other girl who was also from South Africa who traveled with us, she was a very good cyclist, so she had more experience than I did with racing because she'd been overseas more than I had. But still, her swimming wasn't up to scratch and her running wasn't up to scratch. So we were coming towards the back of the field, and that's not fun. No. Especially if you're a competitive person. Yes. So you gave up the elite professional scene? I actually before 2000, when triathlon became an Olympic sport, I quit middle of 99. I actually came back from Australia, had a bike crash. I cycled into the back of a stationary vehicle, and I realized, no, there's something in this. I shouldn't be doing this. So I retired for 2 years.
Yeah,
Because I'd lost
but I
my
presume
joy for the
retired for you and retired for other people from sport is two different things.
Yeah. So I retired from competition.
From competition.
Yeah,
But you still
I
continue to
was
swim, cycle, run all the time.
committed to training all the time. You know, my little consistency is key.
So you retired from being an elite athlete, retired, but never really stopped exercising and
never stopped
cycling,
training.
swimming, running, all of those kind of things. What made you fall back in love with the sport?
The joy of training, and as I said earlier, that I got onto that sponsored team where we could do things together and travel together. Within South Africa, we went to, there were 7 or 8 races every season, and it went on for 5 years.
But now you're not an elite, what are you?
No, we were age groupers.
Age groupers.
We were all age groupers, but there was obviously a younger age group, but I was 40 at the time.
So an amateur.
Yeah, yes. it was
Okay,
amateur
so you're an
racing.
amateur,
Yes.
just doing it because you love sport.
Oh, it was amazing. But we got given things as well. We were sponsored, we were looked after. We didn't have a coach, but we were looked after.
And
I
you
think
started getting better
and I
results
think
then?
that's very important, yes. People looked after our accommodation when we travelled, and our flights and travel was sorted, and it just made it easier for us to then concentrate on our performance.
Because someone's looking after you.
Yeah.
Okay, and when did you start getting better results then?
Straight away.
Straight
actually.
away?
You change
Sure.
your mindset, and you know it's a process. You do get better results when you're looked after and cared for.
And you started winning races?
Yeah, in my age group, yes.
Cape Town, in
Yes,
South
yes,
Africa,
yes,
in the
South
world?
Africa. No, in South Africa, and then I got to travel internationally as a 40-year-old, and won a couple of world championship
champs.
races. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I enjoyed it. I mean, my best win was in 2007 in my first international win
Your
as
first.
an age grouper in Hamburg. I think that was the highlight, possibly, of my career, my
Amazing.
triathlon career, way back then.
Yeah.
And every subsequent win was just another win. But I think back in those days, there weren't many South Africans who were winning on the big stage, and it was important. That was an Olympic distance event.
Olympic distance. Okay.
Yeah, World Championship.
Okay, so you started getting some world championships?
Still didn't know really about Ironman at the time. 'cause that
Still not?
No, that was run by the ITU at the time.
Okay.
Now called World Triathlon. Yeah.
Okay. So ITU, are they now quite involved with coaching?
Very
And
much
coaching
so.
courses?
Very much. They're called World Triathlon. They've changed their name,
Yeah.
and very active, very supportive, coaches, fantastic organisation.
All right. So, I mean, are you an ITU coach now?
Yes, I've been very fortunate to do a course way back in 2007, actually, same year as the
2007.
Hamburg win.
So how did that happen? How did you get involved with that coaching
I was
course?
nominated, and they selected me to come on board a level 2, at the time, an ITU coaching course.
From being a good athlete?
Yes,
Did they just
and I
come
think
to you and say,
showing
do you want to be a
interest. I was
coach?
an older athlete, obviously, at
Okay.
the time, and I knew that triathlon was my sport, and I wanted to be involved, and I wanted to give back. Having experienced triathlon the hard way without a coach, I've always felt like I've got so much to give, to offer, because I've done it the hard way.
Yeah. So you wanted to make it easier
Yeah,
for the next
yeah.
lot of athletes coming through?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure, okay, that's interesting.
I've been fortunate enough to renew the qualification in 2019 with World Triathlon, and it was just renewing the level 2 because it was obviously outdated back from 2007.
2007.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got in touch with you in, I think around 2012.
Yes.
So I decided I wanted to get involved, do my first half Ironman, and I was just learning everything I possibly could about the sport. I remember I got one of those books, the Idiots, or the Complete Guide to Triathlon, and I was reading everything and trying to learn as much as I can online, and I was talking to people, and I spoke to Miranda Simmons, who was my physio at the time, and she said, "Who's coaching you?" And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a coach, and I need to learn how to swim, and I know a little bit how to cycle, and I should know how to run from other sports." And she said I had to get in touch with Viv Williams to go learn how to swim with her and become my coach. And then that's when, obviously, when we met back in the day. And at that stage, I'd never swum 25 meters in a swimming pool ever in my life. And I think when we first met, you probably thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through
I did.
half Ironman?
I still get approached by athletes like you, and I love the challenge, to be honest.
And I did it. And I mean, I don't think I would have ever been able to have actually started to achieve those kind of things if I never came to you as a coach.
Yes. That's nice to hear.
So thank you.
Yeah.
In all walks of life, if you want to become successful, you got to learn from other people that have been successful, have done well in a sport or a business or whatever endeavor you're taking on, to learn from them. I mean, if someone was getting involved with Ironman or triathlon now, what are some of the things that you, as a coach, would teach them? How would you get them involved in the sport?
Well, I mean, you're a bright guy, obviously, because you realized you needed a coach, but there's so many people who try and wing their first Ironman and they learn the hard way and then decide they need a coach
after their first effort.
Yes, and that's what happened now at Mossel Bay. There were so many non-finishers, and I think, you know, having a coach and helping you with the amount of training you need to do, it's a very complex sport. You know, there are 3 disciplines: there's nutrition, there's mental, attitude,
there's transitions, there's
so
everything
much
that goes into that.
So, yeah, and I have a small coaching academy, as you know, and I keep it small because I do see each athlete as an individual with individual needs, and everyone is different. And so there are lots of coaching academies and clubs who coach on a large scale. That's not for me, just because life happens, and I'm coaching a couple of young guys who want to turn pro and get their pro license, but I'm also coaching age group athletes who have life and families and husbands and wives and complications.
And I think that's, for me, that's probably one of the biggest things, because most of the day I'm at work and I'm concentrating on work, that I don't want to, after work now, I have to go and think, should I be swimming, should I be cycling, should I be running, what should I be doing, how should I be doing it? It's very easy for me to just log on to Training Peaks and see, okay, what did Viv say I must do today? Let me just do that. That makes my life easier.
Yeah. And knowing also that your program is set for you and for
me,
your
yes,
week.
Yes.
You know, and if life interferes, well, life interferes, and so it's set for you. And that's how I coach very individually, and I do get a lot of parents approaching me to coach their children, and I always say, can I speak to the child? Because I want the children to know that they need a coach, not just the parents. And I'm talking older teenagers, not young children, obviously. They've got to have a desire and want to learn and be coached, and understand that there's a process to good performance and results. And I teach them not to be results driven, but rather process driven. You know,
and I suppose that's quite difficult. Because especially if someone's doing something like Ironman, people normally enter it as almost like a bucket list item.
Yeah.
So they go, I want to do Ironman, let me get a coach and train to the race, and then once I've done it, I've done it.
Yeah, ticking the box. I prefer to coach an athlete to make it a healthy lifestyle, so that they're not there just to tick the Ironman
for one
box.
event.
Yeah. I do take those on. You know, those who come to me and say, I can't swim and I can't do this and I can't do that, and can you teach me? One thing I do really love is coaching swimming. I find that very rewarding, changing strokes, stroke correction, and getting a non-swimmer who can cycle well and run well to actually be able to swim well.
And that's probably the thing that holds most people back from doing a triathlon or doing Ironman, that they fear of getting in the water.
Absolutely. And with most triathlon swimmers being open water, there's another angle to just being able
sharks
to swim.
and everything else that goes with that.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've done very well with your own triathlons this year. So you've won every single one of your age groups of the 3 Ironman, which is amazing. So well done on that.
Thank you.
Does that still hold as much weight, winning your age group, or do you get more benefit now from seeing your athletes actually succeed?
So it's no longer about me, really. I do it because I'm just passionate about triathlon and passionate about training. Fortunately, I have a husband who stops me from overdoing things, because otherwise I would probably have burnt myself out by now. No, I get a lot of joy out of taking my young 20-year-old guys to a half Ironman with me, and for them to do well and seeing their improvement on their route to where they plan to go, as hopefully getting a professional license and moving up the ranks.
Okay. So getting guys to become pros.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for you.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, so let's start with this. I mean, how much training do you do on average in a week? Because you do a lot of training.
So I mean, I work generally. If it's an experienced athlete, I'll work on a monthly.
But tell me about you though first.
Oh, me.
Before we get into the athletes.
I work as I do for my experienced athletes on a 3-week build, 1 week easier.
Okay.
And we build from, I mean, pros would laugh, but we build up to 20 hours a week. It is a full-time job for me, coaching, and so I don't have another job that I have to rush off to, which gives me the time to train. So we'll build from 16, 18 to 20 hours,
Sure.
and then we'll take an easier week of 12 hours because we have the time.
So easy is 12 hours.
Yeah. But I can easily coach a guy like you who works a full-time job, has a life outside of triathlon, where we can do good things in building from 10, 11, 12 hours and taking an easy 8-hour week. But I do tend to, and then we leave out all the junk mileage. But as an Ironman,
So what is junk mileage for people that don't know?
well, junk mileage is when you go out for your long ride and your long run are obviously important parts of your training. Junk mileage would be, a lot of junk mileage is doing zone 2, zone 3 all the time and not changing. So we cleverly do sessions which are beneficial to you. So there's a lot done at recovery, level 1, zone 1 and 2. And
Almost
then,
like active recovery.
Yeah, active recovery. And then quality work, which is more lower end, zone 4 threshold stuff. And then of course the endurance work.
Okay, all right. And I mean, someone getting started with no background in swimming, cycling, running, how many hours would they need to dedicate to triathlons in a week? Do you start off doing 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah, so I think that I was always good at triathlon because one of the sessions that I would always include was running off the bike. And in triathlon we run off the bike. And so people can swim and they can ride and they can run, but to put it all together is really difficult. So that's the first thing I try and add to their program, if they can do all three, is to, once you get off the bike on the weekend run, long ride, hop off the bike and go and run 4Ks or 3Ks or just
to get used to that.
Learning, I call it an adaptation run.
Okay, so that's swimming, cycling, running. Obviously transitions is another thing. We've done a lot of transition training, which I think has helped a lot. And then I know when I've spoken to some of my friends that got involved with triathlon, I started freaking them out because they didn't even think, I need to know what to do, I need to have this all planned before the race even starts.
Yeah.
I mean, do you do a lot of triathlon transition training with your athletes?
So with my juniors, when they're doing sprint and Olympic distance, where your transition is vital, because they have a drafting portion to their ride.
So they need to be quick through transition.
Yeah. So the Ironman athlete, I take them through it slowly. Like we write notes as to what needs to be done and what needs to be in place for your transition. An Ironman can sit in and gets stuck in transition for 15 to 20 minutes trying to put a wet long sleeve top on a wet body, a long sleeve top on a wet body. And so yes, I do coach them because to lose an event or to be placed 20 minutes later because you've spent so much time in your transition
just wasting time.
Negates all the training that you put in.
Completely.
So your transition is a vital part of.
Okay, and then what aspect do you think a coach plays in the mental side of things?
The coach is there to be in control of everything for the athlete, and the athlete needs to understand and trust the coach.
So you're saying trust. So for me, that's always an interesting one because you would write a program, and then me as the athlete goes, I need to trust my coach to listen and follow that program. And I mean, I don't know how often people are actually doing exactly what you say, or they're doing their own thing, or they think that they must add on extra mileage. I mean, is it easy to get athletes to trust the program and trust the process?
Yes, I think so. So as you mentioned, Training Peaks is a program, an online coaching platform that we use. And I can see exactly what my athlete is doing, if they're doing more than I've prescribed or whether they're not doing what I've prescribed. And that's the beauty of being able to coach a few athletes individually, because you can keep an eye on what's happening and you get all the data back.
Okay.
So I do monitor them very quickly, and in Training Peaks your block will turn green if you've done it correctly, and it turns a different color if you haven't done it, or it's red if you haven't done it. And so it's very simple for me to find out whether they're training correctly. And I'm really not interested in the athlete who is wanting results but not prepared to put them
Okay, so that's the next thing I want to ask, because I've thought about this before, especially with the guys that I have at work. What do you do? Because they're doing it, they decided they want to do a race, and now they don't do the training. It's very difficult for you. What do you do? Because they're not your students, they don't work for you. How do you encourage them to actually follow the program?
I nag them. Certainly I nag them, I message them.
Okay.
And eventually I will give up, because it's clearly not...
It's not a priority.
Not for them. Yeah.
Okay.
But I wanted to also just say that not every coach and athlete do meet and match well, and so I will often have people, not often, but I will often turn athletes away who I don't feel I can coach. And I've had numerous athletes who've been with me for a season, and we just are not a good match because they're not prepared to, they know better.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, yeah, I suppose that must be quite tough though, because you're trying to guide the athlete, because you've got a history in the sport, you've done coaching courses, so you know what works.
Yeah.
And especially,
and it's often a mutual thing where, I mean, I don't say I'm not going to coach you anymore, but they generally just peter out and stop training, and the relationship draws to a halt.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I have some very successful youngsters who've been with me from school days, and yeah, we're going places,
Awesome.
which is very encouraging.
That's good to hear. Nice. And what other tips would you have for someone watching about the mental aspect of doing something like an Ironman?
That's a difficult one, Craig. I just compared two of my youngsters. One's got huge BMT, and the other one we work on all the time. He gets tummy aches and all sorts of things that are, and I'm going, are they real tummy aches, or are you struggling with the mental
nerves.
Side and the aspect of nerves? I mean,
So do you know, so on that, I've experienced with some of my friends. I have some friends that get sick the night before every single race that they do.
I just ignore that athlete, because I know he's not really sick.
Yes.
It's a
mental
whole
thing.
mental, and often we'll get an ache or a pain, and I go, just ignore it. That's normal. It happens to the best of us just before a race. And they go, oh, my knee's sore. And it's not really. It's just all up here.
Happening in your mind. Yeah.
And I focus on what you can control. You can't
Focus on what
control
you can
everything,
control.
so just control what you can.
I remember the first time I did full Ironman, we were in a bus to the start line, and one of the best bits of advice I was given is, it's such a long day out, things are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And this was the first thing that went wrong in that morning. It's like, don't worry about it, it's fine, things are going to go wrong. This is the first one. You exactly what you're saying, control what you can control. There's certain things you can't control, and you have to be able to keep going. You've trained for 6 months or a year, however long it's been. Don't let that derail you from what you're trying to achieve.
So also, I think it's a lot easier to have that mentality for the longer events, because you're going to go ups and downs. But when you've got the shorter, I've got a lot of athletes who do the short off-road mountain bike and trail running triathlons. You can't afford for anything to go wrong.
Yes. Okay.
But that's just something that they need to deal with and learn about and move on. One thing that I've learned about following international athletes, though, is also that because there's so many far more races internationally. Let me go back and say, in South Africa, we put all our eggs in one basket because there's so few races. So we put all our eggs in one basket, and we want results all the time. And when things don't go right, that's when it's difficult, because when's my next race happening? Whereas internationally, they literally race every other weekend. And so it becomes a learning experience when things do go wrong and when things do go right. So here in South Africa, it's really difficult for the youngsters who race so seldom to not always want a good outcome. And so it's the coach's responsibility in teaching them the process of getting there, the process of of achieving your goals is going to take a while.
Take some time.
Yeah.
And do you still feel like you're learning with the sport?
Yeah, we've always, once we stop learning, we might as well leave the planet, you know. Internationally, again, when I work with the international coaches, we learn from each other, we share knowledge. Sadly, here, we don't work together as coaches or athletes.
Do you think that's just our culture?
Again,
or
we've discussed Lucy Charles Barkley.
Yes.
She's an international professional athlete, and she shares what she does on social media.
Yeah.
She's got fans of all ages. But here we tend to keep our knowledge to ourselves. And
we don't want to share it.
No, athletes and coaches don't share, which is bad. We need to be able to share and forever learn from others. You can always learn from someone, even if they're a lesser athlete or
more experience, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's always someone and something to learn. And what's next for you? Are there any races on the horizon?
Yeah, I don't have any personal goals really, but I do love to train and I do love to race. So yes, I have entered another 3 half Ironmans
for next year.
2023 is another big year because I wasn't really satisfied.
And that was after you won every single race that you did this year.
Yeah. I wasn't satisfied with my run, so I've got a bit of unfinished business.
Okay.
But we're going to include an international half Ironman in Swansea in Wales.
Awesome.
Yes, middle of the
I hope the
year.
weather's good for that. I'm sure the weather must play another element of that race as well in Wales.
Yeah, it's in July, so it's
Okay.
their summer really.
Their summer.
Yeah.
Okay, if you can call it summer.
Summer.
All the best for that for the new year. Well done for everything that you've done this year, and then good luck with all your athletes that you're coaching.
Yeah, thank you. I have more goals for them than I have for myself.
Okay, well that's awesome.
But it's
that's
all
awesome
a process, and will take quite a while to get there.
Okay. So there we have it. A coach is so important to help get you to your goal, whatever that goal might be for you. For me, my goal was to do my first Ironman, and if it wasn't for my coach, it never would have happened. So my challenge to you is whatever your goal is, in 2023, try and find someone. No. Don't try. Go and find someone that has achieved what you want to achieve. Get them on board, part of your journey, part of your goal, part of your purpose, part of your dream, and allow them to guide you to your level of success, whatever that level of success for you. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed meeting Viv Williams, my coach that I'm sharing with you. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I'm out of here.